Hello and welcome to Sports Stars review of the NBA 2023 playoffs second round. That is the conference semifinals. We'll begin with the big clash: the Los Angeles Lakers versus the defending champions Golden State Warriors in the West, the Western Conference, where the Los Angeles Lakers beat the defending champion Golden State Warriors 4-2. The Lakers, their victory over Warriors, the pattern was quite similar to how they beat the Grizzlies, Memphis Grizzlies in the first round. There was a blowout win, a close win. There was a blowout loss as well. So to know more about it, Abhishek, what do you have to say about the series and how it panned out?
How it panned out, well, I think Lakers was the better team on an overall basis. If you see from the last series, the shooting with Austin Reeves and players like Rui Hachimura and D'Angelo Russell, they were shooting well against Grizzlies, and that form continued in the semifinals against Warriors, which was I think crucial and like that was one aspect which worked for Lakers. But again, it was Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Anthony Davis in particular, like he was pivotal in Lakers scoring well. He was at his usual best in collecting rebounds, offensive and defensive. But I think the way he attacked the rim and how he scored points. That was where the series was made for Lakers. And on the contrary, things like absolutely did not go the Warriors' way because we've known them to be a team that shoots well from the 3-point range,
Yeah.
and that is where they absolutely missed out this year. Klay Thompson was inconsistent. He had one big game too, I think, where he scored those 9 3-point shots.
Yeah.
But other than that, the way the series ended for him in the sixth game at Los Angeles, that was not what we expect out of Klay Thompson. And Curry even had to like change his game to sort of sustain the attack. We saw a lot of assists from Stephen Curry. He was taking those 3-pointer shots as well, but he sort of should switch to the pick and roll option against the
Yeah.
Lakers, and that is how it was working for them. And other than that, also I think Jordan Poole was a shadow of his former self that we saw last year. Andrew Wiggins was inconsistent, this is the core that they rely on to win them the matches, and since they did not play that well, it sounded out. It led to a loss. Coming back to Lakers, I think LeBron James. We have to discuss him. He was a perfect mix of aggression and sort of taking, hanging back in moments when he knew that okay, the team can handle without him. He was very. I think he judged it to perfection. Letting the intensity fall off and letting other players like Rui Hachimura or say Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell take the reins, and Anthony Davis. And then again, in crucial moments, he stepped up and provided those intense drives to the rim. And yeah, that's how Lakers won the series.
Also, a special mention to Lonnie Walker, can we say? That fourth
I think
quarter.
Stephen Curry penned down a message for him on the back of his jersey. After the series ended, Lonnie Walker asked him, "Can you give me an autographed jersey?" And Stephen Curry wrote that, "I'll never forgive you for the game four that you had." And again, that is what makes a championship team so great. That no matter what the situation, you have some player or the other stepping up in the big moment and pulling you through. And
So,
and that is what Walker did there.
yeah. So Lakers will be facing Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. Nuggets beat Kevin Durant and Devin Booker led Phoenix Suns in the other semifinals 4-2, similar scoreline. And how was the series for you? Like Nikola Jokic leading from the front, and Phoenix just not able to find backup in case like Durant and Booker couldn't do it.
Precisely that. I think the last time also I had mentioned that they need to find that third scoring option for themselves. And by the time game 6 came, Devin Booker was gassed out, was completely gassed out. You could make that out from his shooting. He was afraid to take those pull-up shots. He was inaccurate. Kevin Durant likewise, and the injury to Chris Paul didn't help. DeAndre Ayton was also not there, and yeah, that the Nuggets exposed the lopsided nature of the team that Phoenix Suns had become. And last season they lost to Mavericks in the semifinals. This season it was Nuggets. This time they had Kevin Durant, but somehow that also proved insufficient for them. And now with Monty Williams being fired, I think we'll see not a lot of changes. They're saying that Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton could be on their way out, but we'll have to wait on that. But irrespective of those two players, we can see a lot of changes in the team. So since there'll be a new coach in the mix. Moving on to Denver Nuggets, I think Nikola Jokic is, I don't know, is he an alien or what? He's somehow he somehow maintains that consistency. And like the problem with Nuggets in the past under Michael Malone, with Jokic in the team, has been that can they like sustain it in the playoffs? Can they sustain it in the crunch moments? And so far they've shown that, and it remains to be seen as in against Lakers, because so far they've not lost a game at their home court in the playoffs. And the way the team is going about right now, because they're shooting well from the 3-point range, and ideally Warriors should have beaten them on that aspect, shooting well from a distance. And you have players like Anthony Gordon, and you have Michael Porter Jr., and even the bench players like Bruce Brown, um, Jeff Green. All these players are shooting well, and they're sort of forming a well functioned cohesive unit, which is firing in game after game. And Jamal Murray had that big game one, which gave them the lead. So yeah, it's a repeat of the 2020 NBA
The
conference
bubble,
finals.
the bubble finals.
And I think like Denver has that slightest bit of edge, because I think they're more Jokic is more mature as a player. I think he's a threat in making play as well as scoring. He can defend as well, and yeah, Anthony Davis versus Nikola Jokic is going to be fascinating to watch.
So from the West, we'll move to the East, where one series went right down to the wire. The Boston Celtics versus the Philadelphia 76ers, where Celtics came from 2-3 down to win the series 4-3 in Game 7 in Boston. Do you think like this has happened with the Sixers before also, where they have lost in Game 7, but this one, do you think this will hurt more because they had it in their palm, in the palm of their hands? I think they could have closed it even before Game 7, but once they let it get to Game 7, Jason Tatum just smashed them
I
single-handedly.
think not even like game seven. I think the game was, I think, pretty balanced till midway of the second quarter, until that big performance from Jason Tatum, where he like absolutely roasted them.
Yeah,
And credit to, actually, more than blaming the Sixers, you have to say that Tatum sort of stole it from them. And he said that, I mean, during that series, sometime he said that I'm humbly one of the greatest players. I think he can be not so humble about it as well. He can afford to be not that modest, and we can assert that he is definitely one of the most talented players going around in the game. And you mentioned Game 7. I think even in Game 6, in the final quarter, they were leading, I think, by 4 or 5 points when Tatum came up and shot four consecutive three-pointers, and that was the game. Um, so yeah, I think Embiid, um, he did not sort of match. I don't want to put it this way, but I cannot really think of another way. He sort of did not match those lofty MVP standards in this series in particular. And credit to Boston Celtics, how they covered him, how they defended him. The combination of Al Horford and Robert Williams. These two players were pivotal in Boston reaching the finals last year, as in their massive presence in the paint. But they never played. Joe Mazzulla had been um, no, been avoiding to sort of field them together. But I think
Yeah,
in Game Six he took that call. They're saying that he took that call minutes before the start of the match that both of them will play together. And then if the same was the result in same was the combination in Game Seven, and that sort of cut down the impact and influence that Joel Embiid has. And secondly, what that also did was that halted James Harden in pick and roll plays, and that could, you could see that from how he fared in the last two games of the series. He was not scoring that well, and he was an isolated figure somewhere in the mid range. And yeah, they actually cut down the offensive impact of Sixers. And Doc Rivers, yet again, we see he's um, this was not a 3-1 series blowout, but yeah, there was a time when I think Sixers looked as the favorites to
yeah.
qualify when we led 3-2 in the series. But yeah, not to be. And again, this is a team which comes up with a new coach. Will there be changes? Won't there be changes? There are reports that Harden wants to go to a new team, and he's looking towards Houston Rockets, going back to Houston Rockets. They obviously land up somebody big in the NBA draft in next month.
Yeah.
So yeah, it remains to be seen what happens.
And what do you see regarding Embiid's future with the Sixers? Do you think he'll stay, or do you think he'll also plan to move on?
No, Embiid, I think I don't know how long there's left on his contract. I think the only major player they had whose contract was running out was James Harden, who also has a player option, and he can choose not to extend that and turn into a free agent. But other than that, I think there's no such player. I mean, obviously, if Harden decides to go out, then they'll have to bring in somebody in his place that requires some other fringe players to move as well.
Yeah.
And I think that is the changes we can expect. But Embiid, I think, is fine there.
So Boston Celtics will face Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. Miami Heat beat New York Knicks 4-2 in their conference semifinals, and Jimmy Butler and co. I think they face much trouble from the Knicks. Or what do you say? What do you think about the series?
Heat, I think they very conveniently have sort of guiled everybody into thinking that they're the number 8 seeds, and
The play,
maybe
the
that somehow I think brings a psychological. It makes them complacent. I don't know if that is the case, but everybody seems to think that, oh, number 8 seed is reaching a finals. But you look at the team they have. There's no way that they, like, I mean, their capability is of a number one, number 2 seed. And had it not been for injuries in the regular season, they would have ended higher up in the table. And again, I mentioned in for the Lakers that you have some player or the other turn up in crunch moments, and
yeah,
we saw it this year with the Heat. Max Strus scoring big time, and apart from that, Gabe Vincent scored crucial points in the sixth game for Miami Heat. Or not the sixth game, actually the second game. Gabe Vincent was instrumental in the second game when Jimmy Butler was injured with an ankle injury. And yeah, so that is, Eric Spoelstra is such an experienced coach. He's very nifty in making those in-game changes. Um, you know, Heat, the kind of talent they have, they could easily have ended higher up the table, and they're showing it. This is, I think, their uh, fourth conference finals in third conference finals in the last 4 years, if I'm not wrong. And they yet again go up against the Celtics, who beat them last year. Um, so I think, yeah, and for the New York Knicks, I think it was a case of Jalen Brunson, carrying more than, but I think carrying the weight of the entire team. There was one game, I think game five, where he played the entire 48 minutes, and he was doing the bulk of the scoring. He was taking control of the ball, and you need more players to support your superstar that way. And yeah, so Miami Heat against Boston Celtics will be fascinating to watch, because how are you going to stop Jimmy Butler? And one if you do stop Jimmy Butler, then how do you answer to somebody say like Duncan Robinson or Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo once again, he showed up when he needed his contribution the most against the Knicks, and this is a team which has NBA Finals experience. And you add to that, I think Tyler Hero is still a couple of weeks away from returning to full fitness. So he might not make it in time for this final series, but the overall NBA Finals, if he comes back for that and if he goes through, they're a formidable team, and you sort of cannot rule them out from winning. And this becomes more relevant because to start with, they didn't really have a lot of the odds were not really in their favor. Even now, I think they're what like 3% favorites. 3 to 97 is the odds in favor of Boston Celtics. So again, I think that this is how Heat has gone about business. They're making everyone feel like, oh, you're playing against the 8 seed, but the actual caliber and quality in that team is much much more and much higher than an 8 seed.
So that was it for our review of the second round. Please do join us when we review the conference finals. Interesting matchups: Nuggets versus Lakers in the West, and Celtics versus Heat in the East. And overall, one way or the other, Nuggets will win their first NBA Finals, or LeBron James will get one more NBA Finals in his late 30s, or Boston Celtics could win their 18th title, or Jimmy Butler could have his first NBA championship. One way or the other, these NBA Finals are going to be historic and record-breaking. Do join us for our review of the further conference finals and the NBA Finals.